Thank you, Gurudeva. Om Shivaya, everyone. Om Sahana Vavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Sahaviyam Karavavahai, Tejasvinavaditamastu, Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. And we'll share the screen here. There it is. March 12th in Asia. Our first topic, drawn from the 2016 Publisher's Desk, Making Dharma Your Own. I'm just going to do a section of it. Interesting. We'll have to compensate here. A number of years ago, I gave a presentation at a weekend retreat of the Hindu Students Association, Texas. One of many written questions submitted to me in advance showed a common misunderstanding. We talk about detachment from Maya, but for most of us, career and living is centered around worldly subjects and concerns. How can we reconcile this fact with our larger desire to separate from the material world? How would you answer that question? My answer relates to the concept of two paths, two dharmas. In their pursuit of dharma, these youth were struggling with the Upanishadic concept of self-abnegation, thinking that it applies to all Hindus, thinking they should be more detached from worldliness. So that's the graphic there. The person on the right is detaching from worldliness, but everybody else isn't. I pointed out that it is vital to understand that in Hinduism there are two distinct paths, that of the householder, called Grihasta Dharma, and that of the renunciate, Sannyasa Dharma. Self-abnegation and detachment from Maya belong to the renunciate path, not the householder path. This distinction of two paths in this particular pub desk is the second aspect of Dharma. To quickly cognize the differences between the two, take a look at the ancient ethical masterpiece Tirukural by Tulu Valluvar. Part 1, entitled Virtue or Dharma, Aram. Section 2 is the way of the householder, and Section 3 is the way of the renunciate. Scanning the chapter titles immediately reveals the deep distinctions. In other words, the distinctions are so obvious you don't even have to read the verses. Chapters in the householder section include wife, children, love, hospitality, and gratitude, possession of self-control, avoidance of covetousness. The final 3 chapters focus on giving to others so generously as to achieve renown in the community. So in Tirukural, someone becomes famous. Only way to become famous is by being super charitable. Chapters in the renunciate life section include austerity, the impermanence of all things, renunciation, knowledge of truth, and eradication of desire. Without even reading the actual verses, it is clear that detaching from the materialistic world is a goal for those on the renunciate path, but not those on the householder path. So they had mixed up the two paths. And why is that? Well, Hindu teachings are often presented without relating them to the two paths. It causes this confusion. For Hindu monks, the Tirukural stresses renunciation of wealth. For the householder, becoming wealthy is encouraged, with the goal of generously sharing one's abundance with others. So that's the key. If we simply become wealthy and use it all on ourselves and our family members, that's missing half the point here. The other half is we need to give a reasonable amount of it away to help others. That's what keeps it from being pure materialism. Second topic is some new questions sent into satsang@hindu.org. What is the importance of a living guru and a Guru Parampara? Good question. As the answer, I will give the example I usually give when asked the question, is a guru necessary? That's always a challenging question. You're up on the stage and then someone asks you the question, is a guru necessary? It's like asking, are you necessary? I reply by asking the question, do you need a teacher to learn to sing devotional songs? And then answer the question by saying, no, you don't need a teacher. Anyone can learn to sing simple devotional bhajans without a teacher. However, if you want to learn to sing the more difficult Carnatic songs, a teacher is definitely needed. Is a guru needed? By worshipping regularly at a temple and reading scripture, you can make some spiritual progress without a guru. But if you want to maximize your spiritual progress in this lifetime, you definitely need a guru. So it's just like singing. It's an example that everyone can understand. And no one would think of learning Carnatic singing without a teacher. There is a lesson from Gurudeva in Living with Shiva on why a guru is necessary. Many of you have been studying with me for 10, 20, or 30 years. I want you to think through the rest of the day about the spirit of the Satguru. Suppose you didn't have a Satguru. You would be guided by the spirit of your intellect, or the spirit of your instinct, or the energies of confusion. That's a great one, huh? The energies of confusion. The Satguru only has one job, to keep his devotees on the right track. And it's harder to stay on the right track than you think it is, because life throws all kinds of challenges at you that can throw you off the right track. Oh, question for you is, what is the right track? And Gurudeva says, we do not follow the way of words, which is repeating from memory verses and stanzas of the scripture with meager mental interpretations of their meaning. We follow the way of transformational spiritual unfoldment. We follow the marga of sadhana and tapas. In other words, it's not what we learn, it's what we do. So we do actions that cause transformational spiritual unfoldment, which may or may not involve reading. Usually they don't. The answer to what is the right track is encouraging sadhana and tapas. Shishyas move from one stage to another in spiritual involvement as they progress through the different petals of the higher chakras and come into one or more inner awakenings one after another. So that's what's actually going on. Progressing through the different petals of the higher chakras, which causes one or more inner awakenings. So I created a list. I love lists of major tasks that a guru does, and the list has 5. This is something I did decades ago. First, the guru provides encouragement to continue to strive and move forward. He encourages us to keep striving even when we are going through difficult times in our life. He also encourages us to strive to achieve more than we otherwise would. move this screen. Second, the Guru helps us develop a spiritual self-concept. Whatever self-concept we bring to him, be it one of self-doubt or one of great pride, the Guru helps us move beyond it and identify with our spiritual nature so that we truly feel ourselves to be a divine being. And of course, one of the benefits of feeling yourself to be a divine being is you see others as a divine being, and therefore everybody's equal. You're not less than anyone, you're not more than anyone, because everyone is just the same spiritual being. Third, the Guru speaks the teachings, and by listening to his spoken word, we have insights into the teachings far greater than we can acquire on our own by simply reading his books. So that's something we talked about, the art of listening recently, is Shruti. Hinduism is traditionally based on listening to the teachings, not simply reading them on the internet. Fourth, the Guru helps us improve our behavior through focusing on our weakest areas, as well as giving us guidelines as to how we as a spiritual person should behave. So that's a good point to compare to the singing teacher. Once you get past the basic level, you don't hear your subtle mistakes. It takes the teacher to point out that that is not exactly how it should be done. You're not subtle enough in your perception yet to even see that it's a mistake. So the more subtle mistakes, you need a teacher to point them out. And the fifth one's important, provides initiation to quicken our spiritual unfoldment. And regarding initiation, an analogy to an automobile is helpful to understanding the relationship between Samya Diksha and the japa it requires us to perform every day thereafter. So for those who aren't mechanics, that's showing the spark plugs in an engine. Diksha provides the spark that starts the car for us. However, for the car to move forward, we still need to put out the effort of driving the car. Otherwise, it remains in the same place. The daily practice of japa is like the effort of driving the car. Without daily japa, even though we have received diksha, we do not move forward on the spiritual path. That's a simple example. I recently came across a transcript of a talk given by Gurudeva in Alavetti, Sri Lanka, in March 1972. This was during our inner search program to Sri Lanka in India, and also corresponds to a time Gurudeva gave initiations, including my initiation into sannyas. It was also the 100th birthday of Satguru Yogaswami, and this inspired Gurudeva to talk about Yogaswami some 8 years after his Mahasamadhi. Many of the Sri Lankans listening to the talk were in fact Yogaswami devotees. So this is a picture of Gurudeva, mainly with the Subramanya Ashram original management committee. The exception is the gentleman second on the right, who is Sundari Katir's father, who was visiting from Colombo. Gurudeva said, I like to think of Yogaswami as a great fisherman who put his net out to sea, and all of us swam into it. Now, on the 100th year, he's pulling it in. And some are just so happy that he's pulling us all within. Each one that Yogaswami talked to or looked at has had the Kundalini Shakti awakened. And now that he's pulling in his net and pulling us all within, that Kundalini Shakti is going up the spine. What is the work of the Guru but to start the Kundalini force going and guide it along? It takes its natural course like a river flowing. Meditation, at least once a day, sustains the power of the Kundalini. So same idea here as our car and the spark plugs. In this case, Gurudeva is talking about the practice of meditation, but he could just as well talk about the practice of japa. Okay, I see what I did. Let me sort this out here. Okay, there we go, yes. I put a very short version of the question in the slide. This is the long question. Even while devotees are faithfully performing sadhana and striving to live in accordance with Dharma, challenges and setbacks may present in their daily lives. For example, the unexpected loss of a spouse that may lead them to moments of doubt and lead them to question if they are even making any progress in the Saivite path. Given this, how can a devotee reconcile as soon as possible these incidents to remain steadfast in their faith and religious practice? In other words, how can we recenter ourselves and get back to the state of mind we were in before this all happened? So a few ideas. Certainly a strong connection to Lord Ganesha is important. When we have such a connection, at a time of a major challenge or setback, our devotion to Ganesha helps us drop less in consciousness than we otherwise would. This allows us to recover faster. So if you don't go as far down, you can come up quicker. But it takes devotion to Ganesha, not just routine worship. We have to have a connection. And it's that connection that allows Ganesha to keep us from falling too far down. Next idea, strong habit of accepting what is happening in our life as what should be happening is a major strength in facing difficulties. There is a tendency to label some negative events as a problem. Doing so can actually make it harder to handle. Another approach is that it is just the next thing to do. Dancing with Shiva, Sloka 3, talks about acceptance and surrender. The world is seen as it truly is sacred when we behold Shiva's cosmic dance. Everything in the universe, all that we see, hear, and imagine is movement. Galaxies soar in movement, atoms swirl in movement. All movement is Shiva's dance. When we fight this movement and think it should be other than it is, we are reluctantly dancing with Shiva. It's like two people trying to dance and one not following the lead of the other. Doesn't work out very well. We are stubbornly resisting, holding ourselves apart, criticizing the natural process and movements around us. It is by understanding the eternal truths that we bring all areas of our mind into the knowledge of how to accept what is and not wish it to be otherwise. So acceptance, how do we cultivate acceptance? By understanding the eternal truths that we bring all areas of our mind into the knowledge. Once this happens, we begin to consciously dance with Shiva, to move with the sacred flow that surrounds us, to accept praise and blame, joy and sorrow, prosperity and adversity and equanimity, the fruit of understanding. We are then gracefully, in unrestrained surrender, dancing with Shiva. And a related question, what is the importance of a living guru and a Guru Parampara? Okay. That is not the right question. See if we can go backwards here. This is the first time I gave this presentation, so it looks Looks like I made a mistake on this slide. So the question, which isn't there, is was about types of puja and why doesn't the pujari take the sacraments himself? Does that mean when we do a puja at home we shouldn't take the sacraments? That's something like the question. So the answer, it's important to understand that there are two types of puja. Atmarta puja is done for oneself and immediate family, usually at home in a private shrine. And Parartha Puja is public puja, performed by authorized or ordained priests in a public shrine or temple for the benefit of others. Priests also do the Atmarta Puja as their own personal worship, for example, in their home shrine. So even priests do Atmarta Puja, but then they're just doing it privately to benefit, a priest is doing it privately to benefit himself. Or the family, if the family's there. Why in the Parartha Puja does the priest not take the sacraments could be the idea that all the blessings are for those attending. That would be my best guess. But the important point that the person asking the question didn't understand is two types of puja, Atmarta, Parartha. So the Sishya in our organization are trained to do Atmarta Puja, not Parartha Puja. Are not trained to do the puja in the temple. Only the monks are trained to do the Parartha Puja, not the Shishya. So two types of puja done in different ways. Our third topic is spirituality, which is the 57th character quality from our character building workbook. And as usual, we begin by asking you to define the term spirituality. The workbook gives this definition. Spirituality relates to the spirit or soul of people and includes beliefs about the meaning of life that shape conduct and provide comfort. It's cultivated by scriptural study and personal practice and disciplines. The opposite is materialism. So the simple way I like to think of spirituality is it's about your soul. Whereas most things are about other parts of you that aren't the soul. It is cultivated by scriptural study and personal practice and disciplines. The opposite is materialism. And Gurudeva's first quote, spirituality, the pursuit of direct spiritual or religious experience. Spiritual discipline aimed at union or communion with ultimate reality or God through deep meditation or trance-like contemplation. And the easiest way for that is just the lower manifestations of the soul, such as basic inner light. For example, power of the spine. A form of spirituality is having those experiences. And the second quote, the soul in its intelligence searches for itself, capital S, slowly ascending the path that leads to enlightenment and liberation. It is an arduous, delightful journey through the cycles of birth, death, and rebirth, culminating in self-realization, the direct and personal experience of God, of the self, of truth. This alone, among all things in the cosmos, can bring freedom from the bondages of ignorance and desire. This is the highest realization. and comparing the actions of one who is spiritual to one who is materialistic. First situation, when the rare thing called free time presents itself, you, spirituality, often explore spiritual activities and studies. Materialism are drawn almost exclusively to external interests. Second situation, when a much-loved grandparent passes on, you, spirituality, experience sorrow but soon overcome it, knowing your grandparent's soul is happy in the inner world. Materialism, fall into a deep sadness and despair without spiritual beliefs or tools to console you. Third situation, when the family holds a picnic at the beach, you, spirituality, spend precious moments witnessing nature's wonders and blending into the vastness of the ocean. Materialism, enjoy the sun, the sand, and the surf, not pondering anything more. And reflection, take a moment to identify a few ways in which you could improve in spirituality. And the assignment. For the next 2 weeks, take time in 4 sessions to read from a book or web resource that increases knowledge of your spiritual nature. And thank you very much. Om.